Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. My name is Matt Anderson. I'm the Director of Outreach for the Space Force Association. And today we're here with Brigadier General Linell A, the Dean of Faculty of the United States Air Force Academy. And ma'am, thank you so much for taking your time today. I know there's a lot going on here with COVID, a football game tomorrow, and just plain academics, which is always tough at the Air Force Academy.
Well, it is, but anytime I can get a chance to break away and talk about all the exciting things that are going on at the Academy, in particular with space, I'm just happy to do it. So thanks so much for the invite, Matt.
Similar to when I had the conversation with General Edmondson, I have to comment on this fantastic painting up here.
From the best class.
Yeah, class of '96, tough as bricks.
That's right, that's right.
Many of your classmates reached out to me this week, and none other than Jack Fisher, who was so proud. But he wanted me to give you and our audience a quote that said, "Don't be fooled by the law degree. The general is an astro major." So he's so proud, a fellow astro major with you, class of '96, who, if you know Jack, went on to MIT, spent time with NASA, deep into the space world, one of the rock stars that has graduated from your class. And they're just proud. The whole class of '96 is proud that you're the dean, as am I. So thanks again for doing this.
Oh, absolutely. And as you might know, but maybe some of our listeners don't, Jack and I were actually study partners. So I spent more time with Jack Fisher than probably any other of my classmates, to include my future husband, while I was at the Academy. And boy, talk about somebody making the Academy proud. Jack's just done amazing things.
Yeah, he said, "Don't be fooled by that law degree. She is wicked smart," and I know you are, and we're looking forward to our discussion today. So for many of our members and viewers that don't know the whole big picture of the Air Force Academy, your role, last time we talked, was the military role with the Commandant of Cadets, and the Dean of the Faculty is more traditional with an academic institution, and that is in charge of the faculty and the academic curriculum of the Air Force Academy, and you've been in the job about a year now.
Just over a year, yes.
A lot of change has gone on, and one of the biggest changes is last December, they made the Space Force. And just a few months later, you guys graduated 86 new officers that went into the Space Force. And we talked about that in a previous discussion, but that must have been exciting for you as well, because that has huge ramifications for the future and where your program is going to go.
Oh, it absolutely does. And we saw it even before the creation of the Space Force, just the growing interest, not only among our faculty, but among our cadets and our prospective cadets, who know that coming to the Air Force Academy and studying here is going to open up doors when it comes to space.
Absolutely, and that's a good point. Now that we've had one class graduate, and now that all those high schoolers out there, and for those that don't know, the Air Force Academy, yeah, most of them come out of high school, but there's a variety. Some come from prep schools across the nation. Some are prior enlisted that come in. And the idea of being able to go into the Space Force might have changed the calculus on some of these candidates that are now applying to the Air Force Academy. So my first question is, has the Academy, the admissions, yourself, seen a different demographic saying, that is something I want to be a part of, whether it's academic interests or Space Force after they graduate? Just curious on your thoughts on that.
Oh, we absolutely have, and I'll just give you a couple of tidbits. Just this week, we had something called the Falcon Visitation Experience. Normally, we're bringing in prospective cadets from all over the country to come here to USAFA to spend a couple of days, go to our classes. Well, with COVID, we weren't able to do that. So that experience became a virtual one. And I just happened to be in a computer science class to engage in a virtual class. And here before class, on a Teams discussion, there is a chat going on between scores of prospective Air Force Academy cadets and current fourth class cadets, our freshmen. Yeah. And what were they talking about? They were talking about the Space Force. They were asking questions about, hey, are you thinking about Space Force? So we are seeing it absolutely in our admissions with our latest class, so the class of 24, who obviously came into the Academy after the stand-up of Space Force. We first asked them when they arrived in basic cadet training, hey, would you might be interested in learning a little more about Space Force? Out of that class, almost a quarter said they are very interested. They are interested in pursuing becoming a Space Force member. Another 60% said, hey, I'd like to learn more about it. So in other words, we have over 80% of the fourth class, our freshman class, who want to learn more. We can only send about 10% of our graduating class to Space Force, so I'll tell you, they'll have their pick of the litter, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because prior to the Space Force, we've always had Air Force Academy graduates going into the space career field. But with the media and the press, and frankly Netflix, Space Force has gotten a little bit more attention. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. General Edmondson told us that, yeah, it's going to remain, like you said, around 10% for now. It will likely grow, I imagine, with the space industry as it's grown, but that's a good thing when you have competition.
Absolutely.
So I think that's fantastic. So we talk a lot about the cadet side of it, but a big part of what you do is picking talent to be the professors, to be your instructors, civilian, military. As it was leading up to the Space Force last year, heading close to December, what were you guys talking about? And now that it's almost been a year, what are you talking about now?
Well, we have been involved, as you know, in the space business for a while, but with the ramp up to the Space Force and then the creation, our faculty have been incredibly engaged. Not only did General Raymond call us and say, hey, do your faculty have some interesting ideas on some terms that we might use, how we might name organizations within the Space Force, the rank structure. So we had a number of faculty who were actually instrumental in providing a brainstorm list of ideas to Space Force. We've also had a number of opportunities for faculty who may not have had prior space experience to gain that experience and then look for ways that they might adjust their curriculum to incorporate Space Force concepts and opportunities. So we're absolutely seeing excitement all the way across our faculty.
Yeah, I think that's huge. The exposure to space within the core curriculum, and even for the 90% of the graduates that still go into the Air Force, the example was used before. Let's say you have an F-35 pilot that has a minor in space or has a deep background just from being at this institution from your professors. That's huge with data science and joint all-domain command and control. And all these types of things, the graduates are just going to be better, so that's fantastic. Back to your actual staff. It's only been a year since the Space Force was created, but can you tell us a little bit about who is on your staff with space experience, where they've been, or are you looking for more? Because people want to come here and be part of your team. So our members are very curious about that.
Absolutely. Well, just a couple of weeks ago, I had the great opportunity to go see a commissioning of our faculty going into the Space Force, and a cross commissioning, taking the oath of office to join the Space Force. We had actually 8 faculty members who took that oath and swapped out their name tags from U.S. Air Force to U.S. Space Force. We have another 10 who are going to be taking that oath in February. All told, in our discussions with Big Space Force, we're anticipating a steady ramp up to where we get to somewhere between 5 to 10% of our faculty who will be wearing a Space Force uniform. The idea being that we're going to mirror about the same amount of our faculty as the graduates who are going to be coming from this institution. So in the conversations with senior Space Force leaders, they absolutely want to ensure that our cadets, not only the cadets who are going to go into Space Force, but even those who are going to become lieutenants in the Air Force, have interactions and great opportunities with Space Force faculty.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And no matter where they're at, permanent party is what we often call the non-cadets that work here, whether they're active duty Air Force or Space Force or government civilians. I know for years the Academy has tried to provide cadets a wide range of mentors from all different career fields, academic backgrounds, and this is just another example. We're going to do that again. And one of the examples that much of the country understands is the Navy model, because the Naval Academy's been around for so long, and they have Marines that go into the Marines right out of the Naval Academy. So it's very similar to that, very similar model, not exactly the same, and the requirements for space are obviously slightly different, but it just helps people understand that. So I think that's great. And how do you actually leverage that expertise? So if you have 5 to 10% on your staff, that's not counting the air officers commanding, the athletic department, and all the other mission elements of the Academy. In your realm, in the academic side, how do you leverage that expertise of that, say, 10%?
Well, we're already doing that, even if we're not at those numbers yet. So for those faculty who have space experience, first understand, I think a lot of folks might think, oh, all the Space Force folks, they're in the astronautical engineering department. Actually, that's not the case. We have representatives all across all of our disciplines, and that's a good thing. And so that across from English to history to biology to our engineering disciplines, you see space operators. And so what that does for our cadets is to let them see and learn about how space through different disciplines and through different lenses. But those space professionals are already working today. We've stood up a space detachment here, similar to the Naval Academy model that has a Marine Corps detachment. And so our faculty are working with and alongside that space detachment to be engaged not only in the classroom experiences, but also outside. So we had a space day for our incoming basic cadets when they finished basic training that our faculty took part of. We're engaged in lunch sessions so the cadets can learn a little bit more about. And then obviously the Dean of Faculty also runs our Space Operations Squadron that cadets are a part of, where they actually get to operate satellites and learn a little bit more about the space business.
Yeah, that's incredible. And for a young high school student looking for that experience, this is the place. You mentioned a couple of the majors that are in the Dean of Faculty that the cadets can choose from. And one of the advantages I've heard from many of the cadets is I get accepted in the Air Force Academy, but I don't have to decide right away what I'm going to major in. I get to take a whole bunch of core classes. I get to meet these mentors, these active duty officers and civilians and enlisted members that I'm going to learn from them to see what I want to go do. I think that's a really good thing. But the core curriculum is hard. It's very difficult. Can you tell us about the Corps as it is now, and maybe now that we are putting officers from here into the Space Force as well as the Air Force, do we need to relook at that a little bit? Have you guys think it's about right, or what are your thoughts on the Corps?
Well, first and foremost, the core curriculum is really what makes a service academy. We believe we're one of the last bastions of a true broad liberal education university that relies on a broad core. Our core is actually 29 courses that are spread across our academic disciplines, but more importantly, our core is aligned to 9 institutional outcomes. And those outcomes are designed to prepare the best air and space officers that the planet has ever seen. So from critical thinking and clear communication skills, to understanding principles of science, to national security principles, to ethics and respect for human dignity, our institutional outcomes are specifically aligned, and our core is specifically aligned to those outcomes. With respect to space, we see space sprinkled throughout that. And so a cadet could be in a law course, understanding how the law of armed conflict applies and how one might understand what hostile intent means in space. We could have our core history classes that begin to understand the foundations of the space race and what that meant to our country and to society at large. And so space is absolutely sprinkled throughout. And then we'd also love to share a little bit more about some of the unique space curriculum outside of the Corps that we've started to focus on.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that. Your mention of space law, the people that graduate from this institution are going to be the future colonels, the generals. Space law is near and dear to your heart. Elon Musk and SpaceX came out with interesting discussions today about law on the planet of Mars. It's just going to get more and more intense as this thing goes. But yeah, please tell us more about the initiatives, specifically with the majors and minors and opportunities that the cadets have, whether they're going to Space Force or Air Force.
Absolutely, and many of these initiatives started well before the start of the Space Force, but within the last 2 years, we have developed 2 new majors specifically aligned to Space Force. One is the Space Operations major. The other is what you already mentioned, data science. That's our latest major. The understanding of how we deal with large quantities of information and make sense of that is something that both Air Force and Space Force cannot get enough of. But then another interesting aspect is we just created a space warfighting minor. And what that minor enables any academic major, whether you're a history major or whether you're a mechanical engineering major, you can add a space warfighting minor that gives you a breadth across a different domain and a different discipline. What's exciting about that warfighting minor is that it has a few more technical classes in the astronautical engineering and space op and physics side, but then it brings in the importance of the law, the strategy, the policy, history, to help ensure that our future officers really have a deeper understanding of this domain and what it means for national security. So we're excited to be offering that as a brand new academic minor.
Yeah, that is the data science one. While it doesn't have the word space into it, the highest levels of our government right now are talking about data. How do you clean dirty data? What do you do with too much data? It can actually be a detriment to a military force if you don't know how to deal with it, so that's fantastic. Are there any changes that you personally, yes, you still have General Clark as your boss, but he has two bosses now. He's, in a sense, he's got Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and he's got the Chief of Space Operations, General Raymond, that you mentioned earlier. How have you changed or looked at the way you approach your job, and what's your task to do?
Well, we're certainly making sure that we're delivering to our customers. And so we want to be both the Air and Space Forces Academy. And so because of that, we've opened up that dialogue with senior leaders across the Space Force, just like we always have with the Air Force, making sure that our curriculum is meeting those operational needs. But we're also looking for ways that we can integrate more. Just yesterday, I showed General Clark a brand new research area. It's our CAPS, our Center for Air Power Studies. But what's fascinating about that is that it is really a multi-domain command and control platform that will enable all of our graduates, every single cadet who walks through this Air Force Academy will get an experience in that particular battle lab. They'll learn to understand how air and space are integral to our national security and our future warfighting capabilities. And it's because of those experiences that our commitment to the Air and Space Forces is that we are going to produce leaders who are as equally air-minded as they are space-minded. That's really the takeaway in our commitment to senior air and space leaders.
Yeah, that's incredible. The first class of 1959 that graduated from here could not probably even imagine where this place is going and the opportunities that the new cadets have. So that's exciting. So are you seeing an increased desire for space domain focused research on your staff as well as the students? Are they now diving into it a little bit more? Can you tell us some about that?
Absolutely. We're seeing that zest for research really across all the disciplines. So not only in our physics labs that are working on a range of complex space questions, especially with a brand new telescope that we've got up on the hill behind where we're sitting today, but we're also seeing, and this is to me the exciting part, we're seeing interest in space research outside of the technical domain as well. You mentioned space law before. We have cadets, interdisciplinary majors, who today are working on that question of hostile intent. How might we help define what that means in space? We have cadets who are working on issues of strategy and policy. And what I like about where our cadets are heading is that they're viewing this and pulling together majors from across the hemispheres because they know that those future problems have to be solved in those areas.
Yeah, that's incredible. You know, we have a couple graduates, recent graduates, class of 2020, Cohen Williams and Kyle Johnson, that are both at Harvard, members of the Space Force Association, that are eagerly giving us papers, researching, just diving into the topics, lessons they learned here, and now they're at Harvard doing the same thing. So I know that people are looking here, the fourth class cadets, the third class cadets, and so on. They're looking at recent grads to say, what are there? What are the options out there? And that's exciting.
And there's one other aspect I'd like to say. We recently have stood up the Institute for Future Conflict. And as a result of that, we have our first Institute for Future Conflict IDE Fellow. IDE, for your viewers, is that Intermediate Developmental Education. We're normally sending our mid-grade officers off to various schools to get that IDE experience, but the Space Force believed that they wanted to send one of their high-performing officers here to kick off the Institute for Future Conflict. So we have a patch-wearing weapons school grad space operator in our political science department who is here for 2 years, not only to teach, but more importantly, to do research associated with space policy and to bring cadets alongside of him to develop them and to think about innovation in the space domain.
Oh, that's exciting. One of the main reasons the Space Force Association exists is linking the warfighter, weapons officers, space weapons officers at the tip of the spear to the senior leaders of the Space Force. And next week, in fact, right here in town is the Weapons and Tactics Conference for Space. So we are going to be inundated with space weapons officers in town, and we're excited because, at least for the next 6 years, United States Space Command will be in Colorado Springs. Where it ends up after that, the decision is supposed to be in January of 21. But a lot of people, that often confuses them too. Where is Space Force? Where is Space Command? And whenever I get a chance, I always say, yes, the Air Force Academy is not changing. We've had that question too. Just like the Navy model, we will produce space officers, but the Space Force is going to be in the Pentagon, just like the Army, just like the Navy, and the United States Space Command is a geographic combatant command. So it is just like Central Command, just like Pacific Command. And yeah, it's temporarily here. It may stay here, but we'll see what the government decides. That decision still lies with the Department of the Air Force, and we're expecting the decision in January. But one of the greatest programs here is the FalconSat program. And I know you're proud of that with your history as well. Can you tell us about the FalconSat program?
Absolutely. Well, Jack Fisher, that you mentioned, my study partner, we're so old that we were on the precursor to FalconSat. And so now when cadets from the Astro Department brief about FalconSat, they add a little asterisk to include the dean. And so essentially, but what FalconSat is, it's to learn space by doing space. And it is a program that we are especially proud of here at the Academy. Your viewers might not know, but the Air Force Academy cadets design, launch, and operate more satellites than most countries in the world. Wow. And so over the course of time, we have launched 5 different satellites into space. 5 are on orbit now, 3 we don't talk to anymore, or they don't talk to us. But the other 2 are operational satellites doing space research, and that our cadets actually control. And we've got another one that's in design, FalconSat 10, that is in design right now. We've got a clean room where cadets from across different academic majors are designing and then launching satellites. And then the exciting part is they control them from right here at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, they operationalize it right away. So they're getting that R&D, the operational mindset, and then with all the other classes you mentioned, they graduate from here with a warfighter mentality, a warrior ethos that General Raymond wants, and that's fantastic. Speaking of General Raymond, he is the 4-star general in charge of the Space Force right now, and he has said that the Space Force will be the first digital service. That confuses some people. So I guess my question to you is, are there any changes in store for the Air Force Academy's academic programs, which will leverage the iGen, Gen Z as the first digital natives, if you will?
Absolutely. So we do have a basic computer science class. That class keeps up with the times. I will tell you the programming language they learn now was not the same one that you and I learned. But in addition, they've added principles of artificial intelligence to really understand the cyber domain in a way that keeps up with where we are from a national security perspective. But there are other classes as well, not only within our core, but outside our core, that are bringing in the cyber dimension. Even our Calc 141, so our Introduction to Calculus, our Calc 1. I just got a sat in on a class this week. They're actually bringing coding into that class to help cadets understand not just the raw calculus that really hasn't changed in several hundred years, but the application of that, how they can use the digital platform and digital information to make sense and to apply that calculus to real world problems. So absolutely, we're even seeing the results of those digital natives. You remember when we used to have to sign in on sign-out logs to come back from a pass? Well, we knew that that was something that needed an overhaul. And we were actually, as an academy, going to go out and look for some software, et cetera. We had a cadet who built an app. Saved us a whole lot of money. And now all the cadets have the app on their phone. And it's even got geolocations associated with it. It's really amazing, this generation, and just how comfortable they are with the digital world.
Oh, that's fantastic. And these curveballs that whether the Space Force, you get a new mission, or COVID environment changes the way academics are done here at the Air Force Academy, I know you're really proud because your team, a lot of universities have not been able to do what you guys have done. Wanted to give you an opportunity to brag about your team.
Well, to say that this team has moved mountains in the course of this last year is an understatement. We took this institution in about 10 days' time from a completely in-person domain to completely virtual. With respect to their classes. We continue to look for ways to apply our discipline to fighting COVID. We have a pandemic math team that has modeled and developed their own modeling system so that we can understand how this disease propagates and how we can use surveillance testing to keep it in check and serve as an early warning system so that we can pull other policy levers to make sure that we can continue the mission, which is to graduate the class of 21 for our air and space forces. So I couldn't be more proud of what the team has done with respect to COVID, but also they haven't lost sight of the importance of research and the importance of experiential learning opportunities for our cadets. You would think that we would have pushed a lot of those things off our plate, given the pressures of what this global pandemic has provided. But in actuality, what our team has done is looked for the silver linings. And I'll give you an example. Summer research is of critical importance to our cadets. We were going to be excited in the summer of 20 because we were going to have the highest number that we had ever had before at 300 summer research opportunities. COVID hit in March.
Sure.
We were down to under 100 opportunities. And instead of throwing in the towel, we started saying, hey, why don't we reinvent what summer research looks like? And by the time we hit summer, we had over 450 of our cadets who are engaged with researchers around the globe. So that gives you the idea and the sense of what this team and this faculty are capable of doing. They're providing a world-class education for our future Air and Space Force officers.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. The country needs the graduates on time, and that's important, and you guys are finding a way to do that, so that's fantastic. We also have SFA members around the globe that are tuning in and watching this, and they're PhDs, they're former astronauts, generals, weapons officers. They're excited about what you're doing here at Space, but they also want to be part of the solution and help you with whatever we can. What can SFA members do for the Air Force Academy, for you, General Clark? Let us know how we can help, but we'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on that.
Well, thank you for that. One is just what I mentioned, those summer research opportunities. We're always looking for places to partner with, to send our bright young minds off to industry, to academia, to research labs, so that they can put their discipline into practice and help to solve real-world problems. Believe it or not, we even had a cadet 2 summers ago who got a patent for his work in quantum computing as a result of his summer research. In addition, though, looking for opportunities to partner on research opportunities through the academic year as well. or to look for any number of ways to support any of our 501c3s, our endowment, our Air Force Academy Foundation. They do amazing things by providing that margin of excellence for programs here. Many of the programs that I talk about aren't funded through government dollars. They're funded in large part through either research grants or also, importantly, through gift funds that come in. And so we fund everything from a new fellowship called the Astronaut Scholarship Fellowship, where we select a couple of cadets a year who get to take part in specific research. They get linked up with former astronauts, and they get to pursue a research agenda that is driven by their own interests. All of those are funded through external gift funds. And so if any members are interested, I know our foundation would be more than happy to talk with them about what opportunities are out there to make sure that our cadets learn about space and get the opportunity to do space while they're cadets here.
No, absolutely. We will share that. We have hundreds and hundreds of private personal members, and we also have corporate members that are looking for opportunities to help the Air Force Academy and to create a space and an Air Force that are just second to none. The relationships and the industry partners in the summers where we send cadets for these opportunities, they're just growing and growing more. And as the requirement comes from the senior leaders of the military, for example, United States Transportation Command just recently announced, their General Lyons, the commander, a partnership with SpaceX where they're going to say, in the next year, 2021, they're going to do a test to take 160,000 pounds of cargo that would normally be on a C-17 aircraft, put it on a SpaceX rocket, and move it anywhere in the world within an hour. I know that is the type of technology that these cadets would like to learn. We need industry to help partner with the Air Force Academy to create these opportunities, and SFA hopes to be a part of that. So, ma'am, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Your peek under the tent at what's going on in the Dean of Faculty with your students during COVID. Big football game tomorrow against Boise State. Go Falcons.
Go Falcons.
Again, on behalf of all the members of class of 1996, they are really proud of you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all your members for being so interested about what the Air Force Academy is doing and how we're promoting space.
Okay, take care.